Cheers, guys. Epix 911, welcome to the Wednesday, March 15th, 2017 edition of VR News. Want to start with the game Paranormal Activity. Talked about it yesterday, purchased it, installed it, and began playing, creating a quick look series installment, and just wanted to talk about it for a few seconds. So my first impression were great graphics. The graphics were fantastic and definitely a good degree of polish. Superficially, on the surface, it looks a lot like Resident Evil 7. But any time you stick a, haunted house essentially in the middle of some forest in the middle of nowhere, you're going to get that vibe. Now, this house is a hell of a lot cleaner on the inside than the hoarding zone that was the house in Resident Evil 7. It has bugs. Bugs are to be expected in early access. That didn't bother me so much. I almost treat it like it's a beta version and we are the quality assurance testers. What did boggled me really, was one bug specifically, a clipping bug. So, a pet peeve of mine, guys, is that absolutely horrible game mechanic. And I commented on it in the quick look for Siren. If you haven't seen that, go take a look. Where the game starts off with you in a place you supposedly know well. You work in, you live in. And we're not talking you were hired that morning. You've been there for months, maybe years, hell, maybe 2 decades. And yet you can't find the bathroom. You literally can't find your way around. Well, this game, similar, there's a note on the door, you will find our key in the usual place. I don't know where the hell the usual place is. I've never seen this house, but supposedly you have. So, yeah, what a frustrating game mechanic. I'm chuckling about it now, but it really is irritating. Work it into the frickin' story, guys. 2 minutes, right? I've got amnesia, would have covered that, as cliched as that is. But anyways, in attempting to look for the key, I figured, you know what? Let's line up the door midway through my room scale space and walk through it, see if I can. Well, I could. I could also walk through every single wall in the house. So exterior, interior, and boy, did it break the game. Absolutely script breaking, hilarious stuff happened. Don't recommend it, but how that made it into the game just, again, it boggles my mind. So I hope they fix that, because you get disorientated, turned around, and you just happen to clip through a wall. The game could break. You have no idea. You're distracted chatting with somebody, whatever, and your save file ends up corrupt after putting hours in. So let's hope they fix that little one. I'm also curious. I played it on the Vive. Any Rift owners? I will try and check myself, but maybe you happen to know already if that's an issue on the Rift as well, or exclusive just to Vive. I assume it's both because it's the same core game logic. All right, next story, Vuze 360 3D camera. Mentioned back on the January 4th edition of VR News that they'd be launching March 7th. They didn't. In fact, they announced launch today. They being Humanize, the company behind the 4K resolution Vuze. And they announced that at the South by Southwest trade show, which is taking place in Austin, Texas, between the 10th of this month through to and including the 19th. So very cool, that camera, which, just as a recap, reminder, it has 8 full HD cameras on it. And like I mentioned, 4K resolution. Next story, Jason Rubin stating that Facebook may not create virtual reality games, experiences, apps indefinitely. And what he did, he said, look, if we ever get to a healthy point where developers make money, then Facebook might say, Jason, thanks, but you're done. Now that the ecosystem is set up, let independent developers, small ones, large ones, publishers, maybe like EA, let that be their business. Let them do it. So that's kind of what they see the long term, and then he compared it to Apple iOS ecosystem. What'll be interesting to see is if it's under the current model or more of an open XR model. That remains to be seen. as the years unfold, one day we shall find out. This next story, just one of my favorite hobbies, I've said before many times, is astronomy. And Buzz Aldrin, one of my frickin' astronomy space heroes. He was an astronaut on Apollo 11. He's created a 10-minute video for humanity to get to Mars. And what I like about it is, unlike Elon's, which, don't get me wrong, was inspiring, but very, very, very short on actual science. Buzz's plan, which he first developed in '85 and has since refined, let's just say it has a lot more science in it. And it's really interesting. 10 minutes. I will confirm the media. I couldn't find out where. Just that Time Inc. is going to be releasing it. And when they do, if I find out before, I'll make sure to mention it. But a 10-minute, 360-degree film that he hosts talking about his Mars plan. Next story, FCC filing offering a possible glimpse into a new Samsung 360 camera. And boy, does this look quite a bit different than the current Gear 360. It almost looks like it's designed as a handheld, in that it has like a hilt bottom to it, which you're going to see in the picture here. Same dual fisheye lenses, one on either side, but apparently wireless. And remains to be seen what standard that's going to operate on. But according to the patent filing, it does have 2 antenna for relaying wireless. Now, of course, the original Gear 360 camera, that one is retailing currently for $300 US, and their Gear VR headset for $99 US. Now, this last story gave me a good chuckle. I've often joked with a few of you about VR company names, how appallingly unimaginative and non-creative they can be. And this underlying feeling that they somehow got to cram VR or virtual reality into the name. And it's amusing for all of about a few milliseconds, and then you realize, what a dumb name. Really? You want to keep that for a decade or more? Now, hey, that's their business, absolutely. But this one probably takes the cake, and kind of along the lines of the real Slim Shady standing up, it has to do with VR sports games. So there was a launch title for the Oculus, and it was called VR Sports Challenge. That was a launch title. Sanzaru, the company that launched it. Free Range Games then launched a game called VR Sports. Now, that's a little confusing already. You've got VR Sports Challenge and then VR Sports. Different publishers, developers, games essentially different. Sounding like one is a sequel to the other. Well, now we get another game called VR Sports, and this one also not related to the previous ones. In fact, it does have sports events, quite a few, that the original VR Sports doesn't have. But talk about confusing. Why is it so hard to come up with proper naming convention for virtual reality? So first we've got it with the names of the companies. Let's please not carry that over to VR games. I mean, yeah, it raises a chuckle, right? It does. But can you imagine having 10 games within 6 months called VR Sports or variations of that? It's going to get really freaking confusing. All right, guys, that's it for the Wednesday. Thursday and Game & Friday just around the corner. Hope you guys are having a kick-ass week. Hump day, almost there, guys. Cheers.